Midnight Society has proclaimed that it plans to ship something in 2024, something along the lines of a somewhat finalized product for Deadrop by the end of 2024, sometime in Q3 or Q4. And there's a lot of questions about what this means. 402 Robert Bowling has gone into detail on the AMA about, some hypotheticals, but what this video is all about is my vision, how I would finish Deadrop from this point on in 2024 to get it to that version for the soft launch, whether we call it early access or alpha or whatever, when it's going to arrive on virtually every platform looking like a AAA game, playing like a AAA game. And that's what this video is about, how I would redesign Deadrop, some features that I would add between now and then to make it feel like a complete game and still leave a lot of room, obviously, for the future of the game going forward. So let's get into it. Let's have some fun, guys. Let's talk the future of Deadrop, something we love doing. So I'm going to break this video down into sections because obviously there's a lot to discuss on a lot of various aspects of Deadrop that need to be finished, refined, designed, redesigned, polished, and all of those things. So I'm going to start things off with the maps, the sectors. So we know based on the ARG that the goal for Deadrop is to have 7 different sectors. And right now in Deadrop we have what is Sector 3 cold storage, which is not finished if you're just catching up on Deadrop, but it's the most furthest along on the art side. We have Proving Ground 2, which we're pretty sure is Sector 2, and we've got teasers about in the variant guide. Then we have Proving Ground 3, which we think is probably Sector 4 or the start of Sector 4. So if it were me, I would take those 3 maps and I would finish Sector 3, I would finish Proving Ground 2, and I would finish Proving Ground 3 and launch with those 3 maps, because that's the point of this, is to get the game looking like a finished AAA product, right? And you don't want to spread your efforts too thin. Of course, if they can finish 4 maps or whatever for launch, that's even better. However many that they can finish, right? The end goal is 7, and they can go obviously beyond that. They've got stuff like Canyon, which is not part of the tower, for the DCMs that they can finish. They can do whatever they want to do. But my goal would be to launch with 3 finished sectors with finished art. And we have not seen, for the record, any finished art from Midnight Society on the map side. Darren Bacon and the art team are going to be taking their first crack at it. I'm sure they are working at it right now. Oh, and by the way, one of the things that I would include in the voting rights that founders will have in the future, Midnight Society founders, I would straight up put it in the founders' hands. What sector do you want us to build next? What gun needs to be added to the meta right now? Would you like a short range, a mid range, or a long range? Because if they launch with like 3 sectors, for example, that leaves at least 4 more to go. And if you just from an early time, let the founders vote on that. Do you want to see the Foundry? Do you want to see Sector 6? Do you want to see Sector 1 Underground? That would be something that I would love to see. All right, now let's talk about redesigning the gunplay, and this is a big one. Even though we've been using Deadrop's gunplay, of course the gunplay is not finished, and I think several things need to happen. I'm going to go over how every weapon needs to be rebalanced, in my opinion, what needs to change about it, and some of them frankly need to get better, some of them need to get worse, and I'm going to talk about some other things that I think the meta needs in general, as well as like the what do you call them, the accessories or attachments. I think those should change. I'm going in depth here. So let's start with the assault rifle, and all of the guns across the board need recoil changes. The recoil that we have right now is definitely not finalized. Some of the guns frankly have little to no recoil, or almost all of them. The weapon mod system needs refining, and I'm going to get into all of that here, but let's start with the assault rifle first. The thing about the assault rifle, I like the assault rifle, feels good, does its job for that, mid, also can have long range. And I think that's part of the problem with the assault rifle right now. I think it needs a little bit more of a spray, especially at long ranges. And if you've watched my streams on Twitch of Deadrop, you know that you can laser people with this thing from like all the way across the maps. Like it's very reliable at a range. Like you can contest somebody with a sniper rifle or a DMR at long ranges because it just shoots so straight. And there is some damage drop off on it right now, which I think is a good thing. And it needs that because obviously a sniper or a DMR should win out over an assault rifle at very long ranges. But you can just shoot this thing like it's basically straight as an arrow right now. I'd like to see it spray a little bit more. almost akin to like an assault rifle from PUBG or something like that. Something that you can control, that you know, it's not just putting bullets everywhere at random per se, but a gun that you could, you know, really learn to control at those medium to long ranges. And you know, the more skilled players will perform better with it as they learn to control the gun. That's the big thing. Either just reduce the range or even give it more recoil, more bullet drop, those kinds of things, so it doesn't shoot so straight at long ranges. Maybe even limit it so you can't attach a sniper scope at all. That's one thing that, you know, PUBG shipped in the beginning, and you could put a 15 times scope on a shotgun. It doesn't make a lot of sense, even though it can be fun sometimes to slap those kind of scopes on weapons. Maybe just limit it altogether to help reduce the range issue. When it comes to the DMR, this thing is being slept on by a lot of players right now. It is very, very strong. You can kill people in like 3 or 4 body shots with this thing at virtually any range, and it shoots very fast. You can just tap it a few times and destroy somebody pretty easily. And I think compared to the sniper rifle, which I absolutely love, I don't really want to see the sniper rifle changed at all. We're going to get into that later when we talk about the armor system. Actually, the sniper rifle feels good. You want guns that feel good when you get them, right? We're going to talk about the sniper, but I don't want the sniper actually changed as far as the damage goes. And we'll get into that. So the DMR, the thing with the DMR is it has virtually no bullet drop, even at extreme ranges, shooting all the way across Sector 3. It probably needs a little bit of that. So you need to lead your shots a little more, you know, keep them above somebody's head, for example, to compensate for bullet drop. Again, almost like sniping in PUBG or using a DMR in PUBG. You're gonna have some bullet drop. You gotta time your shots out correctly. I think that's a good way to balance the DMR and make it so it can't just completely contest or even overpower the sniper rifle, which is bolt action at a range. All right, next is the light machine gun, which is by far one of my least favorite classes of weapons in video games across the board. I don't like LMGs. I very rarely find use cases for them. But what I would do is increase the recoil, just like the AR, and increase the reload time, but make the hip fire essentially worthless. So you can shoot this thing forever. That's the base of an LMG, right? Is you want to be able to shoot an LMG for very long periods of time. And it's a very forgivable weapon. So just kind of laying down that suppression fire to keep somebody pinned down. The problem I have with LMGs in most games is they end up feeling like assault rifles with just large magazines. So comparative to the assault rifle in Deadrop, the LMG should have more recoil, less reliable hip fire. The range can probably end up being the same. I have a big problem with LMGs in most games. I don't like them. Give this thing a lot of recoil and just make it pretty difficult to control, especially from the hip. I already mentioned the sniper rifle, so I might as well talk about it now. There's 2 ways that I think the sniper rifle can be kind of brought in line, because it is very powerful, and you don't want it to be a situation where it's a gun that everybody has to have. And even though it's so fun to use in Deadrop, sniping is so much fun, the game is definitely less fun when everybody has one. So that's my first suggestion, is to make the sniper rifle flat out a little less available, so that every single game players, like, it's not a lobby of 30 players and there's 60 sniper rifles in the match. So just everybody has one at all times, because if you don't feel as rewarded when you're using it if everybody has one, right? Like if you go to snipe somebody and like 3 other guys snipe you at the same time, just not as fun. So that's one thing, is reduce the availability of the sniper rifle, but leave it the same. Very strong, very powerful, very fun to use. Love shooting this thing. But the other thing is to perhaps make, again, something very rare, a rare helmet that actually prevents you from being one shot in the head with the sniper rifle. Again, PUBG has this. You know, the Doc was a huge PUBG fan, still plays it to this day. Of course, he also hates the game at the same time. But there's nothing worse than you've done everything right in a match, and you're running and you've been in there for a long time, whether it's PUBG or whatever game, and you get shot once in the head and your whole match is over, right? And Deadrop does have the SIN system, which lets you respawn and so on and so forth. So that that is kind of countered to an extent. But I think if we added something like a very, very rare level 4, maybe even helmet, maybe you can't even find it in the game world. Maybe you have to obtain it through some other rare way from a vendor or a faction, and you can't just have this thing all the time. But if you're going in and you really want to make sure you don't get one shot on a particular raid, you can pop on this helmet, and I think that automatically kind of makes the sniper rifle a little more fair at times, so you can't just get dominated. All right, now let's talk about the SMG, one of the better guns in Deadrop for the last several snapshots. I think the way to balance this thing, I love the SMG, it feels good. Again, probably a little bit more recoil like most of the guns need, but I think the magazine size on this thing needs to get a little smaller. It's very forgiving, and most SMGs in most games don't have ginormous mags. I know you get into stuff like the P90 or whatever, which does have a large magazine in games like Counter-Strike, but I think both the standard mag and the extended mags coming down in size would make this gun a little less forgiving, because it's very accurate from the hip and you can move very fast, which I love. That should be the go-to SMG playstyle, but the fact that you can shoot it for so long really, I think, is what makes it a little bit overpowered. And I think, again, in addition to adding some more recoil, I think that's the change that I would like to see. So you can't just jump around like a madman spraying this thing all over, and eventually you'll just burn your target down. Make it a weapon where you actually do need to aim a little bit and hit your shots. All right, next up is Kieran's favorite category, which is the shotguns. The shotguns in Deadrop thus far have been an interesting roller coaster ride, right? So the double barrel at the beginning of Snapshot 5 was basically Thanos's gauntlet, and another Kiro reference there. It destroyed all ranges. You can one and two tap people. The range was appropriately nerfed. Right now, though, it has been nerfed so far that it is essentially a weapon that has no use case. So what I would do, starting with the double barrel, I think you do need to increase its damage. I think you make it so you cannot put an extended mag on it, period. It is a double barrel shotgun. If it's going to stay a double barrel shotgun, you make it so you cannot put an extended mag on it. That would make some sense. First of all, I think there's really only one fix for the double barrel. I've gone back and forth on this, and I think that is to make it an extremely limited range weapon, like extreme close range situations, right? But in that extreme close range situation, it absolutely dominates. It has to be the best weapon for those point blank situations. It should be better than the pump. It should be better than the SMG. It should be better than the auto shotty. If you're literally sticking the barrel of it into somebody's abdomen or in their face, that needs to be the use of the double barrel. Up close, it needs to hit extremely hard and kill the person in 1 or 2 shots, depending on where you hit them, because if you miss that second shot, you're gonna reload and you're dead. So point blank, it needs to be the best short range weapon, period. Limit the range. Don't let you put a scope on it. Extremely close range, no extended mag, high damage. Oh God, I love double barrel shotguns. I can't, no more. I can't talk about it anymore. All right, the auto shotgun, as we all know right now, is basically unusable. There's a Snapshot 7.5 dropping soon, which it may get some updates in, which would be nice. My thing about auto shotguns, when you think of them in video games, period, automatic shotguns should be the best shotgun in the game. And I think that's what the auto shotgun in Deadrop needs to be. It needs to be the most potent shotgun in the game. The important thing is to make sure, like the sniper rifle, that it's not available everywhere. It needs to be one of the more rare spawns. Again, like I said about the sniper rifle, it needs to be a very, very, very good gun that is hard to find and hard to obtain, because when you get it, you're going to be doing a lot of work with it. Let me put it that way. In real life, if you were fighting in a war, who would you rather fight? Somebody with an AA-12 or a pump shotgun? You're probably not going to want to fight the guy with the AA-12 and the drum mag, right? Like, it should be the best shotgun. Automatic shotguns would be an absolute terror to go up against. They should be, and I would like to see the automatic shotgun in Deadrop be a terror to go up against. This leaves us with 2 shotguns still to go. The pump shotgun, which is very, very, very strong, and at times can one pump people, which is probably not good. It's probably a little bit too strong, but you do want it to be solid, right? The traditional pump shotgun play style is to play around cover, make your opponent expose themselves, quickly pop out, put a shot into them, pop back into cover. And I don't think that we're too far off from there. I do just think it's a little too potent, especially against unarmored or light armor targets. Obviously, it should be better at close range than a long range, especially because we have a ranged shotgun to get into here in a moment. But yeah, the pump shotgun's a tough one. I just think it needs a slight nerf in general to make it fall more in line and be a little bit more fair. But as far as its functionality, it works really well and looks cool, and that gives us our best looking shotgun, even though the auto shotgun and the double barrel still don't have final art. The ranged shotgun has a really freaking cool model. The gun model for this thing is awesome, super unique to Deadrop and its universe. And this is an interesting gun to discuss, right? Because this one's been in there for a while. You never see hardly anybody use this thing. It's an interesting concept, right? Slug shotguns in real life exist. Valorant just added one, a double barrel slug shotgun, and other games have slug shotguns as well. I know Tarkov does. At times, if you are given the time to take your shots, slug shotgun can like literally 2-shot people at very long ranges. You can put a 4x scope on this thing or a sniper rifle and put somebody down. But if you're contesting, if you're trying to go up against somebody with a sniper, a DMR, an AR, or a heavy pistol, you're probably not going to win the fight, because this thing's got noticeable recoil, way more noticeable recoil than most of those other guns that you're going to use at a range. And it's not as natural to use, right? It is a shotgun, so it kicks a lot in between your shots. You've only got so that means there's a long time in between your shots, period. Then you've also got a reload time that's I don't know, it feels like you go through the shots a little bit quicker than something like with a DMR, or again a very forgivable AR at that mid to long range, or the sniper, which is really easy to keep track of your shots. I feel the ranged shotgun, again, which I like the idea of, it's tough to get right because you want it to be usable at close range as well, and it is currently, but it doesn't excel at either right now. Like it's not super great up close, and it's not super great at a long range. So this thing is tough. It really is. I love the idea. The only idea I have to fix this thing is to give it some type of, maybe if you get popped with this thing, does it add some type of slowing effect to the person who got shot with it? So that person is, I don't want to say, like a visual effect or example, like they can't shoot or something like that, but just something, or maybe a small bleed effect. I don't know, something that makes getting hit with a slug, like make the player that got hit by it be like, oh crap, like I gotta rethink what I'm doing right now because I just got hit with a slug and now I've been slowed down for 3 seconds, or I have a slight damage over time on me. And I'm going to get into damage over time as an idea when we get into weapon mods as well. But it's an interesting concept. I want to see the ranged shotgun stay in the game. I want to see it become something. But right now, it needs to become more unique, because at a range, you'd rather use like 3 or 4 other guns before you would touch this thing. And if you want an up close weapon, you would also use like 3 or 4 other guns. So it just needs some refinement and something to make it unique. And I think something like a slow or something for the person who's getting shot could be the answer. All right, pistols up next. My favorite pistol, most people's favorite pistol, the heavy pistol. This thing is amazing, great model, so fun to shoot. Revolvers and magnums in games are just so good. I mean, the Deagle, right? The Sheriff, the Wingman in Apex, a lot of famous heavy pistols. And I love Deadrops as well. I do think it needs to stay strong. I do think it can be a little bit overpowered in its current state, however, and I think the biggest thing that needs to change with it are a couple things. Again, I think maybe you make it so you can't put a sniper scope on this thing, first of all, so you can't aim all the way across the map with it. But it's really the effective range of the heavy pistol, which makes it really an all-purpose weapon that can contest a sniper rifle, which is quite nuts when you think about it. It's not usually the intended design of a pistol, because you can shoot this thing, and again, people have seen me do it on my stream, from the hip at extreme ranges, like all the way across the map, pretty accurately, especially on the first and second shot. Again, recoil changes and stuff aside that I think are going to come universally to the game, I think maybe limiting the effective range of this thing, especially from the hip, is a potential balanced solution to make the heavy pistol better. You do want it to have better range than the other pistols. You do want the heavy pistol to be able to do things like maybe contest an assault rifle, you know, at mid-range. And you do want it to be better than an SMG at mid-range, for example. But you don't want it to be like pinpoint laser accurate from the hip, or you don't want to two-shot somebody all the way across the map. I mean, I do want to two-shot somebody all the way across the map, but you don't want it to be so dang easy, right? So that's how I would change the heavy pistol. The auto pistol, I've had a lot of debates about this thing. The auto pistol is a solid weapon, and when you respawn with an auto pistol as a sin, I've often said that sometimes it feels a little too strong, right? Like the auto pistol, to me, it's not, I don't want to say it's one of Deadrop's best guns, but it's definitely not a bad gun. And you don't want to respawn with a bad gun. I get that. I know I talked to some of the devs in Vegas at the Snapshot 7 launch event about this gun. I think the big problem with it is it's just too accurate from the hip, especially while like jumping and moving. You can just ape people with it, and it does quite a bit of damage. It's, again, very forgiving. So for a long time, I go back and forth on this thing. I have advocated for it to be turned into like a second SMG, something like an Uzi. So it makes a little more sense than an automatic pistol. But in order to do that, I think I would actually increase the magazine size, but reduce the accuracy and the damage per bullet. Or maybe that's just what needs to happen with the auto pistol in general, is reduce the range a little bit, especially make it a little bit worse from the hip, reduce the damage. I don't want it to be a bad gun. You don't want to respawn as a sin and just be totally screwed, right? You want to be able to defend yourself. So it's a very delicate weapon just because you respawn with it. And maybe that's one of the changes that they need to make, is make it so you don't respawn with an auto pistol. Maybe they respawn you with a semi-auto pistol. How do people feel about that? Because a semi-auto pistol takes a little bit more skill to use. And it is a really good gun in its current state as well. Another gun a lot of people sleep on. And the only thing I would change about that, the semi-auto pistol, personally, it is, again, at this point in time in Snapshot 7, it is laser accurate from the hip. Run around the semi-auto pistol and shoot people from the hip with it. Don't aim down sight. It hits. It hit. You'll never miss. It's very, very good. So to balance the semi-auto pistol, I would nerf the hip accuracy. And then when it comes to the burst pistol, this thing shoots, the bullets come out of this thing like crazy, and it can do a lot of damage very quick. But it's also a gun that I feel right now is not worth picking up, because even with an extended mag, you really got to hit your shots. So what I would do is increase the magazine sizes on this thing to make it a little bit more of a viable weapon, because right now there's not really a use case for the burst pistol. Burst guns can be really good in games, but they have to be risk reward, right? You got to hit your shots to actually get those kills. But if you hit your shots, hypothetically, you should kill somebody faster than with a full auto gun. That's kind of how it goes in my mind. But right now, the burst pistol, the magazine's just too small to really pick it up and make it worth running around with, when you can just spawn with an auto pistol, or better yet, find a heavy pistol, a pump shotgun, a sniper, an assault rifle, SMG, whatever. This brings me to the weapon attachments and modifications system. This is already in Deadrop in its basic functionality. You've got things like barrels, magazines, and stocks, and right now there are 4 different varieties of these attachments, and there's a weapon mod slot, all of which is subject to change. And one of the things that's been asked for, as far as quality of life goes with these guns and also the armor, is to have these attachments and so on auto equip when you pick up a better quality version of a, you know, let's say a barrel. So let's say there's 4 different versions of these barrels which help with your recoil or whatever. Again, stocks have one function, magazines clearly have a function, they increase your bullet capacity, barrels have one function, so on and so forth, you know, scopes. So there's been a lot of calls to have these things auto equip. Let's say you have a level 1 stock, you see a level 4 stock, you pick it up. A lot of players want the level 4 stock to auto equip and have the level 1 just go into your inventory. Right now, you have to swap manually. You have to open your inventory and put the level 4 stock, you know, on your gun yourself. It doesn't auto equip even if you have a lower quality version. So the ask is to have the game just recognize that, okay, he's got a level 1 stock right now. He just looted a level 4 stock, put the level 4 stock on his gun for him, and put the level 1 in his inventory, or her. So I got thinking a lot about this. How do you visually represent the difference between these attachments? So I've been thinking a lot about that, is how do we visually change the appearance of these things, of 4 different barrel attachments that all do the same thing at just different qualities, or, you know, 4 different stocks. You know, one of the ideas is to just do like a rarity system, which I didn't particularly like. You know, you could do like green is the lowest tier, blue is the next tier up, purple is the next tier, orange is the next tier, or whatever, like a lot of RPGs do. But I really got thinking about this, and I would change the way attachments work entirely. I don't particularly think that 4 levels of the same feature, the same enhancement to your gun is all that interesting, right? So I would change it completely, and this allows you to visually change them as well. So instead of just having 4 different barrel attachments that essentially do the same thing, I would break things down into, you know, taking homage to PUBG here, a compensator, which makes your recoil easier to control, a flash hider, which removes the flash from your gun, makes you harder to spot, a silencer, which clearly that doesn't completely silence your gunshots, but makes them harder to hear, especially at a range. And then you do like an extended barrel, which could increase the effective range of your weapon, maybe reduce bullet drop. You could go on a variety of ways here. And then you get into the weapon mod system too. And right now, the basic weapon mod that we have, you know, like increases the damage, but increases is it vertical or horizontal recoil? I can't remember, but I would use that weapon system. You could get quite interesting and innovative with that. You could do things like incendiary rounds. You could do things like slug rounds or stun rounds, something that adds a damage over time, or a bleed. You could do a variety of things with that weapon slot and obviously change things up. And I think that's their intention. You know, right now the weapon mod is really just a test, right? But I think we're going to see more weapon mods in the future. And it could be used for things like completing certain objectives or quests too. You could put like an item, like a tracker on your gun, and you have to, you know, let's say you have to get 10 kills to complete, you know, a certain objective with this certain thing plugged into your weapon mod slot. But to me, I think it's much more interesting to change the function of these attachments, because obviously a silencer would have one visual appearance, a flash hider would have one visual style, and a compensator would have one visual style. An extended barrel, you know, maybe you do a snub barrel as well. You could do a shortened barrel, which, you know, allows the player to have a little more agency in their attachments, and it's not just increasing the quality of the same attachment. They have different appearances that are easier to recognize. So I don't know about you guys, when I'm playing Deadrop, I don't even really pay attention to the level of my attachments right now. As long as I've got attachments on the gun, that's really all I'm paying attention to. I don't even pay attention if it's a level 1, level 2, or a 3, but I would definitely pay attention to, okay, I have a compensator right now. Would I rather switch to a silencer? Would I rather switch to an extended barrel, depending on what guns I have, to increase my range, or however I want to play? And it creates more situations when you're loading up for a raid, depending on what you're trying to achieve during that raid. Okay, this one I want to use a silencer because I really want to make sure I just get in, complete my objective, and extract. Or I want to use an extended barrel because I want to snipe and get as many long range kills as possible. just allows for more player agency, and it solves the whole visual indicator of the different attachments problem at the same time. As far as throwables go, consistency is really the key here. You know, frags, they're better in Snapshot. They got better in Snapshot 6 and 7 than when they were first introduced. Obviously, we want more throwables. I think they just need to be slightly more consistent. Frags, at least in general. Smokes can be refined visually, obviously, as the art moves towards it being more finished. Not expecting Counter-Strike 2 levels of smoke physics, but hey, you never know. One can dream, right? But I think, to me, the first thing that needs to be added as far as throwables go is definitely, I know a lot of people are going to say a throwing knife. That's whatever. I personally want to see a, you know, whether it's a gas grenade or a Molotov or both, something that you can really use to stop somebody in their tracks and kind of block off an area with fire and make somebody really rethink how they route to that area. Or do they just you know, stop chasing you because you threw a big pool of flame down and they don't want to go through? Or do they want to push through it and take some damage and risk it? I think that's the most interesting way that Deadrop can evolve its throwable meta right now and change player behavior, which is always a good thing. Oh, going back to throwables, something like some type of sticky grenade would be really cool. Please God, no C4. Please God, no mines. At least that's my personal opinion. I hate those in Call of Duty. But hate turrets in the finals too, by the way. Please God, no turret deployables ever. If they're PvE turrets, as in like the cleaners have them somewhere on a map, that's fine. No player turrets. But a sticky grenade, kind of like Halo, but obviously not a plasma grenade, would just be something that would be really cool to see, whether you stick it to a wall and somebody's running around a corner and it detonates as they run by and it kills them, or you stick it directly to them, kind of like a brute spike grenade. Just a thought. Super fun. I have separate videos about the topic of new weapons down the road. I know we could speculate about that all day. I've called for a flamethrower, somewhat humorously, but also seriously, at some point in the future of the game. I definitely do not ever want to see a freaking rocket launcher in this game. Please God, no. But a couple weapons that I would like to see come. Again, I think both the SMGs and the rifle category could use some expansion, and I would love to see that before the launch or at launch. You know, I think we could use a second SMG for sure, if not a second and a third, something like a Vector, something with a small mag but very high DPS output. Again, I've suggested an Uzi archetype as well. Then when you go to the rifle, you know, set of guns, I guess something like an M16, a burst gun that, you know, if you hit your shots, you know, like a 2-tap to the head kind of gun, but with recoil, and obviously it's burst, so it's going to be high risk, high reward. And then maybe something like an AK, something with extremely high recoil, but also some higher damage to go along with it as we change the recoil in Deadrop in general. I really think the future of the gunplay in Deadrop is to lower the floor of some of these guns, but also increase the skill ceiling by making them a little bit harder to control. I think that's the future of Deadrop's gunplay here as we see it evolve over the next 8 to 12 months or so and into the future. But those would be my immediate ideas for adding more guns to the meta. Would be, you know, a couple more SMGs, couple more rifles. That would be the first thing that I would ask for. Okay, next is movement, and I got some hot takes here. I know the movement of Deadrop and movement in games always gets people going, right? And here we go with the mouse and keyboard versus controller debate as well. I'm not going to get into that at all, other than you guys should expect that when Deadrop does its soft launch in 2024 and arrives on console, obviously the controller configurations are going to be much more polished and the game will play better on controller. I am sure that is going to happen. So rest assured, it will be more optimized. Here is how I would change, me personally, Ryan Reynolds, Mayor Reynolds, would change Deadrop's movement for the launch of the game, how I would refine it. The first thing that I would change, first of all, ledge grabbing does not go away. People have brought this up to me. It is a really awesome feature that opens up movement options that other games do not offer, and it makes Deadrop super unique in that regard. Escaping from people by jumping and risking falling to your death and grabbing on something like that is not something that other shooters offer. Deadrop has it, players do it now, we love it. Don't change it, keep it in the game. We need more unique movement mechanics in video games, and ledge grabbing is awesome. I don't care if it's realistic or not, it's awesome. Don't change it, feels great, absolutely keep it. My other thing when it comes to movement, my other decree or rule, do not add fatigue, do not add stamina to sprint under any circumstances. And I know Doc doesn't love this, I don't love this, I don't like it in any game. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it in Fortnite, I don't like it in any game. Why can I run longer in real life than I can in a video game? And I don't care if you say balance reasons. I say the same thing about Tarkov. Why can I, in real life, me with an assault rifle with one eye, shoot it more accurately in real life than I can in Escape for Tarkov? Like, guns don't function like they do. Tarkov, I'm getting off track here. Tarkov is a game that tries to lean into realism, but the guns function like they were made during the Civil War era. As far as their accuracy goes, it makes no sense. Anyway, let's get back to the movement discussion. Do not add fatigue under any circumstances for run and sprint. Deadrop is a fast-paced game. It feels better than other extraction shooters because of that, because of its speed and movement. And we want to make sure that as we make changes to the movement system, that it retains that. So what would I change? I would add some type of diminishing returns to jumping, or what is commonly referred to as bunny hopping. I don't love this. I think it breaks the immersion of the game. I think in Quake or whatever, it's fine. It's part of the game. Unreal Tournament, for those of you who are even old enough to remember those games. Classic FPS franchises, by the way, that I hope we see return soon. I don't like it in Deadrop. I just don't. Jumping repeatedly nonstop for 5 minutes, the noise it makes is distracting, I think. And I just don't think it makes sense in a game where you also have like peeking from cover and so on and so forth. And I'm not even saying necessarily that it's insanely overpowered, because there are other ways to balance it, and I'm going to get into one of those in a second. I just flat out don't like it in this game. I don't think it makes sense. I don't dislike players for utilizing it in the game right now. I do think it's what I would call unintended design. I jump around when I play, right? Like it's natural. But I do think if you add something like you know, most games use it. Apex, for example, uses it. If you jump enough times, your jumps start to become less and less effective. You don't want it to be that you can't jump. You just don't want to be able to jump around forever like a madman. Because in Deadrop, I do think right now, the whole sprint around a corner with no gun, pull out your gun midair and then beam somebody all at the same time, it's too effective. And it could be super fun, but I do think it's a little too effective of a strategy to just, you know, sprint from around the corner with your gun put away, jump, and you launch yourself like 10 feet, so the person who's around the corner, you know, can't really tell where you're gonna land, and then you pull out your SMG midair and you spray them and they're dead before you even hit the ground. It does sound great to punish corner campers in that method, for example. I just think it's too much. The other thing that I think you could change, and this is more of a gunplay thing than a movement thing necessarily, is to just ensure that all of the weapons are properly balanced for their mid-air accuracy. If, for example, you do leave bunny hopping in with no diminishing returns, for example, if you just make sure that the mid-air accuracy of a gun is properly punished, that kind of balances it out as well, because you don't want somebody just jumping, spraying nonstop. That's kind of a ridiculous play style. It kind of reminds me of, like, you know, Fortnite with the building and the jumping and the shotgun swapping. We don't want to get into that, in my opinion. So that's enough. That's how I would change Deadrop's movement at the moment. But I know people love that discussion. That's fine. Feel free to leave your comments in the discussion and boost my engagement. All right, now I want to talk about the loot pool of the game. We've already talked about some ideas for additional weapons and throwables, for example. But I want to talk about the loot pool in general. We know it's going to get bigger. We know that more items are going to be added to the game in a variety of ways, but let's get specific. One very specific thing, an easy one, low-hanging fruit. Cleaners need to have better loot, period. Right now, they take up a lot of ammo, they give away your position, they can damage you, consume your resources because you have to heal or you have to reposition because cleaners are pushing you. But when you do kill them and you loot them, and right now, again, we're in the testing phase, guys. They've only got an LMG and nothing else. You've expended ammo, you've changed position, you've expended health, but you didn't really get any rewards. So I think we need to make fighting the cleaners more rewarding from an inventory standpoint. I think making them have, whether it's just health and ammo, it all is an improvement. But I would love to see certain items or even certain weapons maybe someday. Maybe that day comes sooner rather than later, that you can only obtain from the cleaners. And we're going to get into the whole cleaner section later in this video. I'm telling you guys, this is a nitty-gritty detailed video, okay? But I think that would be sweet. Like that flamethrower that I want in the game, maybe you can only get that by killing a cleaner and looting it off of their body, and you'll know if they have a flamethrower because you'll see them using it, right? And I think you would also have certain rare resources that maybe you trade in with a vendor, because we know the game's gonna have a vendor system. Maybe only 1% of the time cleaners drop a certain item that you might need for some other objective in the game, right? And the thing that first came to my mind is like, maybe you need it for a crafting system to craft certain items. But Midnight Society has said in the past, they're not super into the idea of a crafting system, so I don't think it's coming. But maybe they just drop an item that you can trade for whatever, certain other things that you need that's rare, right? Make fighting cleaners more rewarding from a loot pool standpoint, and give cleaners kind of their own loot pool to make them unique. And actually, when you see them, make a conscious decision, like, do I want to run from these guys? Or, oh, they might have something that I really need that I can't get anywhere else. I think that's the first thing. And then here's one of the big things that I would love to see. This is definitely a Mayor Reynolds particular idea. I would love to see kind of like a Destiny style grimoire to build the lore and the story of the game. And you could do this through a variety of ways. You could add items, and maybe it's Dirk Sapham, the comic series, maybe it's those items. But when you find these items in the game and you extract with them, you are building an in-game catalog of lore and story. And it doesn't have to be that the comics are actual comic books that you can read. That would certainly be sweet. And by the way, Midnight Society, I will write them for you for $1. But anyway, that's my idea. We all know, and a lot of us love the Deadrop universe. The setting is super sweet. But I think if you had like this book, this companion book, and maybe you can read it in your hideout, which we're also going to get into later in the video, and you unlock various entries in that book to fill in the details of the world and characters of the world, and maybe even foreshadow events to come in future seasons. That would be sweet, explain things like the climate wars, the creation of the sins, and the history of the tower, the inner workings of the tower, how the cleaners are made. These are things that can be explored through actual seasonal stories in time, but you could also give so much more color to the world of Deadrop and the existence just through simple text-based stuff. And all you would have to do is add items to the game world that you can loot, which unlock these lore entries. And I would be thrilled to help Midnight Society write these. By the way, hear me, Midnight Society. We also know that car customization is going to be a thing. Absolutely. It's whether that starts with the soft launch of Deadrop in 2024 or not, who knows? But there's going to be more cars, and there's going to be different ways to customize your car other than just the color. So, that's something that's obviously coming to the loot pool, going into the game world, finding certain parts for your car. I would imagine that's how it's going to work. You pick them up, you extract with them, you unlock it forever. Or maybe you have to find a variety of parts, combine those parts, and then you've got the full car part. Either way, that's something that, again, is going to add to the extraction shooter element and the loot pool, and add more player customization, as you can customize your actual cars, other than just the color. Can you, different headlights, different tire sizes, I don't know, different spoilers, whatever, right? Car customization, looting those parts in the game world, big part of the loot pool in the future. Next, I want to get into the health discussion, and there's two discussions here. One of them is the adrenaline. First of all, I think adrenaline is really one of the first examples of an in-game deployable item that I think we've seen so far. There will be others. Most people, as cool as adrenaline is, has noticed that it feels very overpowered. I think the damage reduction that it has really needs to go. Reducing damage to me is a weird feature, and I know lots of games do it in various ways. I don't like it when you go to shoot somebody and you expect a certain, you got the muscle memory of how many shots it takes to kill somebody, whether you're body shotting them, headshotting them, whatever. You've already got varying levels of armor that are changing those things. But then all of a sudden, when you throw the damage reduction of an adrenaline on there, it really throws the player who's fighting that person off. I don't love it. I just don't. I think it feels strange to shoot somebody and all of a sudden you're hitting them for like 6, I think is one of the SMGs. If they're in like level 3 armor and they've got adrenaline, you're hitting them for like 6. If you're not using adrenaline, you're probably just gonna lose that fight. I don't think that feels good. So what I would do is keep the make it like an octane stim. I don't think it needs to take health, but make it so you run faster a little bit. But I would actually give it a slight heal over time. That sounds much better to me. Make it an actual true healing item than something where it's actually reducing incoming damage. I'm not a fan of that, and we know that it's been overpowered for a little bit now. So again, whether you just make it a lot less available and keep it the same, that would probably also solve the problem. But I would just kill the damage reduction and make it so you just run faster, so it doesn't totally throw off the fights that it's involved in. And then I know there's been a discussion of a potential armor plate system that's going to be tested in the future here. We don't know if it'll make it to the final game. Obviously, it's just an idea and a concept. And this is something that I've wondered for a long time. So right now in Deadrop, once you have your armor, you're pretty much set. You never need to rethink it. If you've got a level 2 armor, obviously you might want to swap to a level 3, and that's all well and good. But that's it. You could fight 25 times with the same armor and never think about it. And I think that's part of what leads to the crazy, just bunny hopping around everywhere, because you never need to slow down to stop and think, how's my armor, kind of thing. And I think the armor plate system that Midnight Society may be considering might be part of that. Like, okay, how do we make the actual armor that you have more valuable and more of an element of the game that you have to think about and pay attention? So I think what the armor plate system could do is create decisions. So if your armor can be damaged or even broken, and it's reduced and its effectiveness becomes reduced, something like PUBG, for example, and I know different genre, it's a battle royale, but I'm just citing a comparison here. In PUBG, your vest can take damage as you're shot, and it could eventually break and become totally useless. If that happens, you will want to seek out a better armor. Obviously, whether it's a fresh one that you find in the game world, or if you just take one with less damage on it from somebody that you kill, or you do something like an armor plate system or a combination of these ideas where, okay, my vest broke, but I have looted however many armor plates or brought in however many armor plates with me, and I can repair my armor in the field. And maybe that only takes a few seconds, like popping a shield cell or something in Apex Legends, but it creates that tension and that decision in the middle of a gunfight. Do I apply an armor plate to my vest, or do I push this guy, or what do I want to do, right? Do I risk going for that guy's bag because I know he might have a better vest for me because mine is damaged and almost broken, or is totally broken? That's where I think this armor plate system could come into play. And I do think, as we talk about, evolving Deadrop's gameplay and, making it feel a little bit more like an extraction shooter as well, when compared to a battle royale, even though PUBG is a battle royale and uses that. I think this is something that definitely warrants testing, and that I'm looking forward to testing, because I think that could change the gunplay and the way that engagements happen in Deadrop by a lot, and I think that could be a really good thing. I've got a video on this whole topic, but let's talk about how to enhance and polish cleaner behavior in the next 8 to 12 months. The biggest gripe that I have with the cleaners, who are clearly unfinished by the way, is their range. They will spot you all the way across the map, and they've got a spider sense that the rest of us just can't keep up with, right? So I think that's the first issue, is their range. And it's not even that they shoot you very accurately at that range, it's that they give away your position, and you'll be all the way across the map, and they'll just be shooting an LMG, tapping it at you, or a DMR or whatever. And you know, that's quite frustrating. I think limiting their range is the first balance change that cleaners need. I would also love to see, and I know we're going to see this stuff in time, because 402 has mentioned this flat out, you know, as different types of cleaners and different sectors. But I would be fine with different types of cleaners even within the same sector, right? Like right now they're pretty one note, you know, they act a certain way. But you know, cleaners with short range weapons like shotguns, for example, so you can identify, okay, this cleaner has a shotgun, I'm going to stay at a range and I'm going to eliminate him rather than push him, and vice versa. You know, okay, he's got a long range gun, I'm going to make him take a shot, and then I'm going to push him with my shotgun or my SMG just to create more gameplay variety. Again, I already got into the loot pool thing, that they just need to drop more items, period. I think they could drop unique items. I think they should drop more ammo and meds as well. But I also think there's plenty of interesting ideas, and I mentioned this in a previous video as well, for flat out different whether you even call them cleaners, different style PvE enemies in Deadrop in the future that could be part of the cleaner umbrella, I guess. So the first one I had is some type of, like, what do they call it? It's like a drone, and you could do something really cool where it's like I guess you could do like a jetpack cleaner or something like that, right? But you could just do like a very cleaner styled, cool sci-fi Deadrop looking drone enemy that you know, flies around and would create players looking up and shooting up or running. Again, you give away your position and shoot this thing. I just think of lots of games PvE metas. When I think of like Halo, you think of the drones in the sky in Halo 2. You think of other various enemies like in the Doom franchise, like the cacodemons. And again, it makes players look up and change the fight style, other than just looking straight ahead of you or looking down. I think some type of PvE enemy like that. We've talked about boss cleaners, which may take a group to whether activate and then eventually take down, who are going to drop something really valuable. Of course, maybe they drop some of those sweet car parts that we're talking about, or the flamethrower, the flamethrower that Mayor Reynolds desperately wants in the game. But I've mentioned this in a video, maybe like a Terminator style cleaner that like locks on to one person, maybe the person with the most kills in the lobby, and they just slowly chase this person across the map slowly. You don't want them to be like insane and just like kill the person who's doing the best, right? And maybe it's only in a certain sector that this guy or girl, this Terminator cleaner operates in, and they only go after the best performing person in that one particular sector, but they just slowly walk behind that person, pursuing them through the whole map. So it makes that person who's playing so well have to watch their back and move and either fight this thing or reposition. And other people might see this thing, let's call it the Terminator, walking through the map, and then they have to decide, do I shoot this thing and help the guy take it down? Do I just let it do its thing? Okay, I see he's walking in that direction. That means that the kill leader or whatever is over there. Maybe I want to go push them and steal their stuff, because they probably got some good stuff because they've killed a lot of people. A lot of interesting decisions that could come from that. So I'd love to see that. And of course, there's just a lot of basic cleaner behavior that can be cleaned up and changed They learned how to jump over gaps and climb ladders in Snapshot 7. Just basic enhancements. Their animations cleaned up. That stuff's all going to happen, I'm sure. And I'm sure we'll see that in the next 8 to 12 months. All right, next is the return of the player hideout. We know this is going to be a thing. I expect it to be there at the soft launch of the game in 2024. Some of the things that we know are going to be part of that player hideout: various vendors and factions and characters that you can interact with, trade with, take missions and objectives from, so on. Your garage where you customize your car and your vehicles. A firing range to practice using Deadrop's weapons was in there in the past. I'm sure it will be there when it returns because players have been asking for it. A potential Visor Cortex collection has been talked about. A way to look at the various things that you've unlocked or collected. Again, I would love to see a Destiny Grimoire style lore thing that you can read in there in-game. Maybe you can check the leaderboards that are on MidnightSociety.com from somewhere in-game in your own hideout, so you don't have to leave the game. That would be really cool. There's a variety of things that are all going to be part of this player hideout experience as you get ready to gear up and load out and go on your raid. Do you accept certain missions from these factions and vendors in there? I expect Dr. Disrespect to lead one of these factions personally in the game, the character of Dr. Disrespect. I've also talked about that Fang logo that we've seen several times in concept art. Was that made up just for concept art, or is that a concept that's sticking around in the future? Will Space Bob be present? A lot of questions, right? But customization is also planned to be part of that. And will that customization be part of the launch of the hideout? I don't know, but that's another thing that obviously would add to the loot pool of the game, is going into the game world on raids and grabbing items that you can then use to customize your hideout and kind of make it your own home base that feels like you. And we know they've talked about stuff like guild or team hideouts. I personally, I think that will come to the game eventually. I don't know if they'll be able to get it through at the launch of the game. I wouldn't be prioritizing it if it was me personally. I wouldn't be pouring too many resources into it for the launch. The customization of the hideout, I very much would. But that is something to come in the future. And again, the customization of that will add items to the loot pool as well. I would also expect to find your, daily, weekly, monthly challenges in the hideout, those kinds of things. And, when we talk about challenges, there's a variety of things that we can get. And I think the factions could focus on the various different challenges. Like, I would expect Dr. Disrespect's character, if and when it arrives, not confirmed, really kinda is, but, it's not in the game yet, at least. Let me put it that way. To be PvP focused objectives, maybe you get PvP focused missions from him. Is there another, does Space Bob, he hates the cleaners. Does he give you missions to go up against the cleaners and kill a certain number of cleaners or loot them or steal from them or whatever? And does the Midnight Protocol character make a return? You have to get a certain number of extractions or loot a certain number of items, right? These are the type of objectives that will be in the game, and I'd expect them to be present in that player hideout. I have a whole video about this topic. You guys should check it out. It's a very long one, but it's worth listening to. The final thing that I'm going to mention is, yes, I would include the high risk, high reward gameplay. I think you should be able to risk your cosmetics. That's the only way I see cosmetics working in an extraction shooter like this and having any actual value and the marketplace. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it here, but I do think that should be a thing, that should be a core component of Deadrop. There's plenty of systems in the game, whether it be the insurance system or just player choice, whether or not you want to even take them in with you. They've said that, there's going to be so many items, including cosmetics, that are going to be earnable. You don't have to purchase anything if you don't want to. I'm not going to get into it here, but me personally, I would have that system ready to go at launch. Because to me, I identify that concept with extraction shooters. I identify that concept with Deadrop, and I would want it there when the game soft launches on all platforms and the player base really starts to ramp up. I would want that there from the get-go so everybody understands it, and so on and so forth. If it were me designing the game, I would absolutely have that ready for the launch of the game. And then of course there's a lot of other things that I don't particularly expect at launch. We know there's going to be a battle pass with season 0 that came with the original tower keys. There's going to be a battle pass, we know that. I'm sure that you know, UGC in general will evolve between now and then. We've got Lua scripting coming in Snapshot 7.5. I don't expect the map editor to be ready for the soft launch in 2024, but we do expect UGC to come forward a little bit in between now and then. Obviously there will be more DCMs built period between now and then, because Lua scripting is going to enable a lot of different stuff, and we know that the next big step beyond modes is to make players to make their own skins and weapons. I personally don't know if I would expect that for the launch in 2024, but if there was the next step in UGC that is going to be there, that would probably be it. Like, I think Rob said probably 2024 for that, but I don't feel that it's necessary to launch the game per se. All the other stuff that I've talked about is in my opinion core to the Deadrop experience. You know, polishing up VES mode, the gunplay, the maps, the art, the sound effects of everything, the audio, we know that's going to come forward, the player hideout, the loot pool, all that stuff is essential, right? But you could easily do launch Deadrop 2024 and have the one of the features of, you know, let's say they call the first season season 0. Let's say the launch of season 1, one of the features of that season, maybe you make that the first, you know, players being able to make their own skins or whatever. And if it comes first, great. This is all if it comes before that, great. These are just my opinions, what I would prioritize, the design decisions that I would make. That's it, guys. This has been a long one, but it's super interesting stuff. I can't wait to see, you know, where Deadrop ends up in 2024. We're going to be play testing a lot of this stuff as founders. Snapshot 7.5 is coming really soon. You know, the next version of the game, which is going to add Lua scripting and obviously enable more DCMs to be made, new experiences to play. But I'm really looking forward to this. I really think that a lot of the things that I've brought up in this video will end up happening and be part of that Deadrop soft launch that I'm talking about. But let me know what you guys would like to see happen with Deadrop by launch. What do you think is important? Sound off, whether it's in the comments or in the Midnight Society Discord in the suggestions section, things that are important to you, because we all know the devs are listening. They care what the community says, and feedback matters. So subscribe to the channel if you want more Deadrop and Midnight Society content, and that's what this channel is all about. We really work to be your #1 source for Deadrop content on the internet here. So if you're interested in Deadrop's future, this is a channel to subscribe to, plain and simple. Thanks for watching. Give me your ideas in the comments below, and see you on stream too. Twitch.tv/Mayor Reynolds. Mayor Reynolds, Midnight Mayor, tired, exhausted, drinking G Fuel, out.